And good evening, Cuse Nation, and welcome to the season premiere of the Upstate Orange podcast on FingerLakes1.tv and YouTube. We're coming at you live from inside the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. It's late Sunday night, November 15th, 2015, and tonight we're going to be talking about Syracuse's opening win over Lehigh, the new look roster and style of the 2015-16 Orange men's basketball team, and a whole lot more, including Connor's Corner Trivia. The Upstate Orange podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank with locations in Auburn, Farmington, Geneva, Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. Be sure to check out their mobile banking app or visit them online at mygenbank.com. Just me in here in the studio tonight, and Brad Connor via telephone. Matt Verkey off for the season opener. And so without further ado, I suppose I should welcome Brad back into the show. Welcome back, Brad.
Hey, Jim. How we doing?
Pretty good. It's been a long summer and fall, but Syracuse is back. They beat Lehigh, and it's going to be a lot of interesting things to talk about, but probably the best thing is that we're going to talk about a tournament-eligible team, right?
That is the best thing we can state about this year. It's a strong improvement over last year, and hopefully we'll be talking tournament from this point on all the way through March.
And an interesting pre-conference schedule and freshman class to talk about. So the way we do it here is every week we start out with 5 big questions, and let's get right to it. The first question of the season here on the Upstate Orange podcast is, what are you most excited about for 2015-16 as far as Syracuse basketball is concerned? Brad, and I'll let you go first.
I think the biggest thing that I'm excited to see this year compared to the last couple of years anyway is what I expect to be a much faster pace out of this team. They're very guard-oriented this year, as we've seen early on, and I really like to see what the up-tempo style is going to do for this team. And you know, they've been a little bit slower moving over the past several years. I'd like to see some games in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, and we haven't seen much of that. So I'm real excited about that. I think that'll be a good thing for the fans and for the program, and you know, even for recruiting down the road.
I agree with you. It seems like it's going to be a little more exciting team. The past couple of years, it's just been frustrating at times on the offensive end, and that's not the Syracuse basketball that we grew up with. You know, it was run and gun and half-court shots and long left arm of the law, Derek Coleman. But, you know, that being said, one of the things I am most excited about is our 2-3 zone defense this season. We're going to have Coleman and Iboko in the middle, which is not really a adequate replacement for Rakeem Christmas defensively, but the rest of the zone is just long and quick. I mean, we're huge. You got Cooney and Benajay up top, and Richardson, Malachi Richardson, Roberson. We're just big, and that generally translates into difficulty scoring for the other team playing against the zone.
Yeah,
go ahead.
We've been talking for a long time about how Boeheim has really perfected recruiting to the zone, and you can see it with this team, you know, just like you have the last several years, where he's really got guys that are long, lean, can get out on shooters, be able to extend, to cut off passing lanes. We saw a bit of that the other night. I expect a lot more of that as the season goes on. I think the group collectively is a quicker group than maybe we've seen in past years, and I think that the ability for this zone to create havoc could, if they develop on pace with what we expect, could be as good as that Final Four team. You know, just the zone itself, the Carter Williams Final Four team, where that zone was stifling.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm excited. And, you know, one game in, Lehigh, most likely a tournament team, a team that started 4 seniors. Syracuse held them to 28% shooting. So and also, you know, this is a chance for another overachieving Jim Boeheim team. I think more often than not, historically, when he enters this season with a top 5 team, that the end of the season tends to be a little disappointing. And we've had our most successful seasons, I think, when expectations have been low. And they're certainly low after Missing the tournament last year due to the NCAA, but it was going to be difficult for that team to probably qualify anyway.
Right.
So
right. I'll tell you one other thing I'm excited about for not the best reasons, unfortunately, but I'm excited to see Mike Hopkins get his debut as a head coach for several games over ACC play. And that'll be interesting to see what he does with the team, and if there's really any difference between the way he manages a game versus what Boeheim's been known to do over the past 40 years.
Yeah, a little sneak preview of the not-so-distant future. And I'm not even upset with the NCAA about the Boeheim ban, although I think it's obviously unfair. But I'm most upset with the vacated wins. That's what I want to see, thrown out on appeal. They did it for Joe Paterno, and it's just ridiculous to vacate wins. We know how many wins Jim Boeheim had. It's why do you got to confuse all the record keeping?
No, it's just rubbing salt in the wound. It's just the NCAA just being spiteful because Boeheim is a curmudgeon and doesn't really cooperate with them, and they just wanted to stick it to him, whatever way they felt like they had leverage.
Do you think that there will be some overturning by the NCAA? I mean, they had the.
So, but man, they got to get their act together, and that's not what the NCAA is necessarily known for. Time is ticking on potentially reducing his suspension for ACC play, and I think that's probably the most likely scenario is that the 9 games is reduced.
Right.
The vacated wins, I think that's probably fair, but there is no timetable for something like that. They've got to do something in the next probably 3-4 weeks for any effect to happen this year.
Yeah, and they're dragging their feet. They had the appeal hearing in the first week of October, so.
Right.
But what are you going to do? You're at the mercy of the NCAA's process, I suppose. And it's sad. It's pretty sad how Boeheim's career has been tarnished. And not that this is one of the big 5 questions, but we've been sitting on this all summer. I got to tell you that not only is this tarnishing Boeheim's legacy, but back when when Boeheim found out about some of this stuff, he held him out of games. He held him out of the NCAA tournament. We had a team that was probably one of the favorites to win the national championship with Fab Melo in the center of the zone, and Boeheim sat him out. The NCAA didn't sit him out. So how can you be so harsh when we didn't even reap any of the benefits, really, of going through all this with Fab Melo? Syracuse would have been better off if Fab Melo never came to school.
Yeah, and how would the punishment have been any worse had they let him play in that tournament? Go to the Final Four, win a national championship potentially. You're still probably going to – I can't imagine the sanctions would have been any worse. You would maybe vacated more wins. Beyond that, I don't think they would have I don't think Boeheim would have been suspended for a whole season.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It defies logic. But, here we are, the first question of the year on the first episode, and we've gone off on a little bit of a tangent. But let's move ahead to question number 2. And, it's really every Syracuse team, needs a leader. And our leader this year is going to be 5th-year senior Mike Benajay, who's transitioned to the point. And the question for you, Brad, is, can Benajay be the man? Can he be that leader? Can he, I think really for the Syracuse team to be successful, Michael Benajay has to have a All-American type of year.
Yeah, I struggle with thinking that he's got that kind of game. I don't think his game is as suited to be a point guard as it is to be maybe a 2 or a 3. He's point guard by default because Caleb Joseph still probably isn't ready, because Trevor Cooney's not a point guard, because Frank Howard's nowhere close. So he is the point guard, and that's for better or worse. That's what we have this year. He's going to turn it over. He's probably going to take some ill-advised shots. To me, and you're right. They need a leader, and those teams that have been most successful have had that vocal leader. It almost seems when I watch that Trevor Cooney tends to be more of the vocal sort of heart of that team. And Benajay, he doesn't strike me as that kind of that in-your-face vocal leader. I mean, he's a little bit more Tyler Ennis-like, that he'll let play speak for his game and
Lawrence
and lead the
Moulton
team that way.
Lawrence Moulton comes to mind.
Either style is right or wrong, but it feels like maybe between Benajay and Cooney, both are leaders in sort of different but complementary ways.
Yeah, as far as leadership goes in terms of team chemistry and all that, in terms of a guy taking the last shot, well, actually, that's interesting. I mean, I'm sure we'd see Cooney with the ball in his hands at the end of the game. These are a couple of seniors, and I just think Benajay, a former high school All-American or McDonald's All-American, top recruit, transferred from Duke in his 5th year in college, is just primed to put together a really nice season leading this team. You know, I think for a stat line, you're looking at an average of 15 points a game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers.
Yeah, the way he played down the stretch last year, absolutely, the trend is in that direction, and I think that those are the types of numbers we can expect from him. I do want to make sure that as a point guard on this team, that he looks to distribute as much as he does for his own shot. I'm not exactly clear that that's where his head is. But there's enough weapons on this team that hopefully he can have an easy time getting everybody involved.
Yeah, and watching the Lehigh game, you know, a couple of possessions, they really moved the ball well, and it didn't seem like anybody was particularly looking for a shot. It was going to be the first guy to get the open shot. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the approach of shooting all the threes this year that it looks like we're in store for. But I think Benajay is a guy who can also take it to the hole and make the mid-range jump shot and attack the rim. And I think those are going to be some, traits that we're going to need to utilize because I don't see Trevor Cooney doing a lot of that. The book's still out on Malachi Richardson, doing some of that. Certainly the mid-range pull-ups, but as far as attacking the rim, and even guys like Tyler Roberson, I don't know if he's really ready to attack the rim like we expect him to. You think he would now in his junior year. And then the other guy we got is Coleman, who, hasn't really played much college basketball yet. He's a senior. And so we can't just chuck threes. We're going to need people to attack the rim. And Benajay is one of the, I think, few guys on the team that we know can, or at least hope can do it consistently. So let's go to
I agree with you on that.
Let's go to question number 3. And I mentioned Coleman. How is the Cuse going to hold up in the paint? Because, the million-dollar question this year is Coleman going to get injured or is that knee going to hold up? Because if it doesn't and, he's not available, we're looking at Chinoso Oboko, and we're 1 year away from the 7-3 transfer from Providence. So it'll be – and it looked like Oboko's backup was Tyler Lydon, the freshman who is not ready to battle with ACC centers. So, what do you think, Brad, about Syracuse's approach to managing the center position and the ability of guys like Coleman and Oboko to play at a level we need them to play at? And they were getting a lot of praise after the Lehigh game, especially Oboko defensively. But, I had to remind people who told me that, Oboko looked pretty good. He had 5 fouls in about 14 minutes, I think it was. And Coleman had 4 fouls in 13 minutes. So, yeah, it was 15 minutes for Oboko, and he fouled out. And Coleman, 13 minutes, 4 fouls, and that's against Lehigh. It's scary. That's the one part of this team that's pretty scary. So, what do you think about the center position?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a struggle for most of the season with this group. I mean, the foul problems. When DeJuan Coleman was healthy in his early career, we saw the same thing. The defensive principles weren't quite there. Couldn't slide quickly enough. Just got out of position and ended up fouling too much. Oboko's still raw. He didn't play much last year, so he's really adjusting to the pace of college basketball. He's not going to be an offensive threat by any stretch of the imagination. He's got a lot more Baikita in him than he does, any Rakeem Christmas or Rick Jackson. So that's going to be a challenge for him too. I think you're not going to probably get a lot of offense from it. I think you hope these guys can rebound. To me, it almost feels like when Fab Melo and Baikita were freshmen, and they struggled. They weren't ready for the pace of it. There were turnovers. They didn't really involve themselves in the offense, rebounded okay. But I think the fouls are going to be a problem. I think the offense won't be able to run through the center spot like it did last year, and you're going to end up with a perimeter-oriented team like I think we've already seen and can probably expect to see. What I would like to see is, we saw a little bit of that the other night, Tyler Lydon, getting big minutes, as on the floor as a 4 and maybe even sliding over to a 5. I mean, the kid can rebound. It seems like he's, the most intense rebounder there is on this team, but he's lean. He's probably not going to bang with the big guys in the ACC. So once we get into ACC play, it's going to be a problem, I think, this season. Roberson has to play bigger. I don't think we've seen that from him yet. He's still, sort of on the lean side as well, and yeah, it's going to be guard oriented, and I think you got to get your points in transition. You're not going to get it in the half court quite as much without a big guy drawing the defenses.
Yeah, and it's the $1 million question really is Coleman, because it's another guy, that was recruited by the top programs in the country. He had to decide between Syracuse and Kentucky. We've never had a chance to really see him be able to flourish. So now you get a guy who's age of a fifth-year senior, and he's got the floor experience of a sophomore, but he's been around the program for all those years, and it's going to be interesting to see. But 4 fouls against Lehigh, especially 2 quick ones where it really limited his minutes, wasn't too encouraging. What would have been encouraging is, him playing 24, 25 minutes and scoring 14, 15 points and pulling down 7, 8 rebounds. So, but we'll see. The good news is the knee looks healthy, and but you really just gotta keep your fingers crossed, because regardless of the talent level, we just need big bodies to fill that position. And maybe more importantly than what they do offensively is just how they hold it down in the zone. And opposing coaches are going to go at them, try to get them in foul trouble early. So definitely something to watch. Brings us to question 4. And, one of the things that was going to help us with this center problem was Mustafa Diagne. Or Dang, I don't even really know how to pronounce it because he's not on the roster, but he was a part of the stellar freshman class before the NCAA decided that a class he took back in Kenya or Senegal, I can't even remember which African country it was, might not qualify, so let's throw this young man's future off track. So, it doesn't make sense there. Again, don't want to go off on a tangent. Instead, we want to talk about the freshmen that are on campus, in particularly Malachi Richardson, the 6'6" freshman guard from Trenton, New Jersey. Tyler Lydon, the 6'8", 210-pound forward from Elizaville, New York. Franklin Howard, 6'4" point guard. Actually, kind of a swing guard. He can go either way, 190-pound freshman from Maryland. And another one that I just want to make sure people know, Adrian Autry, 6 foot, 182-pound freshman guard from Janesville, DeWitt. Adrian Autry on the roster, assistant coach Red Autry and former Syracuse great point guard Adrian Autry's son. So I don't think he's going to help us much on the floor, but I'm going to include him in that list of freshmen. But obviously, so far it looks like Richardson's the one that's ready to help us the most. Maybe even a one-and-done type of potential there. It's too early to tell. Tyler Lydon looks fantastic, but a little undersized, needs to bulk up a little bit, needs to but he's looked good so far in the exhibitions, and against Lehigh he's ready to see some floor time. But again, when the bodies get bigger as we move to the Battle of Atlantis and into the conference schedule, we'll see how he holds up. And then Franklin Howard, I like what I see. He only played, I think, 4 minutes against Lehigh, but have no problem seeing Franklin Howard on the floor at this point if we need him to spell Joseph or Benajay. So what do you think about the freshman class so far, Brad?
I will tell you that I mentioned him just a little bit ago. The one that impressed me the most is Tyler Lydon, because I love the energy that he brings. He's active. He's as active as anybody inside. I mean, how many times he got 11 rebounds in 28 minutes. You know, he was on the floor at crunch time down the stretch in that game. I mean, he was the most capable big they had that they could go to in that spot. He seems to have range. He didn't knock any down against Lehigh, but he seems to be able to extend at least beyond the 3-point line. But he can guard. You know, he's still lean. He's going to put on a lot of weight, but he's a guy that'll probably be here for 2 or 3 years at least. And so there's something to be said for that we can count on him to grow and develop. He seems like he just brings a different intensity than some of the other guys, and I think he's just going to be the one that we can really consistently see performance from. You know, I think with a guy like Malachi Richardson, we'll probably have a bit of a love-hate relationship with over the course of the season. And we saw, you know, glimpses of both the other night. He was instant offense against Lehigh and hit the first 3 of the game. And he maybe had the first 2 threes, and but then he turned it over, 5-6 times. And just with lazy passes and just the things that you could get away with in high school that you just can't at college, and which is crazy because these guys have been playing high-level basketball their whole lives. But I think
excitement.
There just may be lapses of intensity there, and he's the kind of guy that may fall in love with his shot and may not attack the way he probably athletically probably can. So I think he can be great, but I think he probably will be frustrating from time to time too.
Yeah, I agree with like most freshmen, but just maybe the best shooter we've ever had. When just watching him in the exhibitions, he's a special shooter, and
he doesn't lack confidence. I know that.
That's a great thing for a freshman too. I think in our case, a guy that we're going to be counting on. He played 30 minutes against Lehigh in his first college game, and I think the turnovers are something that he'll be aware of. He already talked about it in the post game, and so I think we'll see him cut down on that and make a lot of 3-point shots this year. So let's kick it over to the fifth question of the night, and that is, we're apparently going to live or die by the 3 this year. Boeheim said it. They shot 34 threes against Lehigh, made 11 of them. That's not very good. And the 34 3-pointers were 10 more than last year's highest single game total for Syracuse. So against Lehigh, they shot 10 more 3-pointers than they did in any game last year, if that tells you anything. So, Brad, you think that can be a successful strategy for Syracuse? You think that can result in an ACC championship, maybe a top 3 or 4 seed on the NCAA tournament and a run to the Final Four?
I'm kind of doubtful on that, actually. I think that's got to change a little bit. I don't think they shot 34 threes. That's a lot of threes. But they made 11. But that's just a slightly under 33% clip. And a lot of people you have demonstrated the math behind. If you can shoot 33% from 3, it's the equivalent of shooting 50% from 2 in terms of the number of points that you can generate. So, from that perspective, if you can be at or above 33% from 3, I think that's acceptable. I don't think you want to generate your offense around it though, because when you look at the stats from the other night, they were 11 for 34 from 3, but from 2-point range, they were 7 for 18. And you got to think some of those are layups and dunks. I mean, you got to do better than 7 for 18 from 2, and that's a reflection of what we've got going on inside. If they're not generating consistent offense inside, well, you're gonna have to launch threes, and that's unfortunately what we're dealing with. But the one thing I do like about having multiple 3-point options, I mean, we've seen the last 3 years, Trevor Cooney has become completely one-dimensional. All he does is just run off screens and run around in circles and try and get open for a 3-point shot. But the defense is so keyed on preventing him going off like he did was in Notre Dame last year or 2 years ago, and he had 9 threes, and he's done that a few times. So they're very focused on preventing that from happening. they're not going to be able to key on him as three-point weapon as much if a guy like Malachi Richardson is on the floor, who's just as much of a weapon, if not more, from three. If a guy like Michael Benajay can be hitting threes at a consistent clip, and he's been a strong three-point shooter in the past. He just
Caleb Joseph as well.
They're more focused on that. Well, it takes pressure off Cooney to be the guy, and maybe he can get a little bit more open looks, and instead of shooting off-balance threes and forcing a lot of what we saw last year, which is why his percentage was probably as low as it was.
Yeah, and Caleb Joseph has improved his shot too so far from what we've seen in the exhibitions, and he had a big one last night in the second half. And I think Caleb Joseph will flourish in this role off the bench instead of having all the pressure on him of being the starting point guard. He's got a year now to free himself up a little bit and find his game and help this team off the bench, and then hopefully as a junior be ready to step back in and take the helm as our starting point guard. So, I agree. They need to have some element of an inside-out game. They can't just throw it around the perimeter and chuck threes. They need Benajay to penetrate, even if they are setting up a three that way, but they need some action inside. It's strange to think that Boeheim would kind of resign himself to it so early. This team will continue to evolve, and hopefully the defense forces some turnover so we get some points in transition that way. But 34 three-pointers, man, it was a lot. And I'll tell you what, the beginning of the second half against Lehigh, they have 5 wide open looks to start the second half with a nice lead, a nice 20-point lead, and they miss them all. And next thing you know, it's back to single digits, and it's that's what's going to happen this year. They're going to go cold, and they're going to see leads evaporate or opponents' leads grow and you're going to have to hope that they get hot again and hit 3 or 4 threes in a minute and a half. So, yeah, whether that's a recipe for a Final Four run, I'm not sure it is. If they happen to all shoot at 45% in the NCAA tournament, then yeah, I could see that happening. But very difficult to do that with any consistency. And you mentioned Trevor Cooney. The only thing consistent about Cooney has been his inconsistency. He, showed some flashes with
He wasn't much better last night.
Yeah, no, it was the same old Cooney. Really, don't want to say he didn't work hard or he hasn't improved, but in that game, it really was the same Cooney I've seen the past couple of years. And he's gonna shoot the lights out a couple times this year, but I really feel like he's also gonna go for the month of February. He's gonna have one of those consecutive weeks or 4, 5, 6 games where he shoots 3 for 40. So, but it's still too early to tell. Got to kind of give these guys the benefit of the doubt until we see a little more basketball, and we will see a little more basketball coming up on Tuesday night at 7:00 when Syracuse hosts St. Bonaventure. I love seeing St. Bonaventure, Syracuse. That's an old school matchup. St. Bonaventure could have been Syracuse if Roosevelt Bowie went to St. Bonaventure instead of Syracuse. Little known fact of, actually it's a pretty well known fact, but going back quite a few years. And then after that, go ahead.
We would have had a different color commentary man the other night on the game if that was the case.
That's
Not
right.
sure if that was a good or bad thing.
Roosevelt Bowie on the color commentary chair, which if as a Syracuse fan, I like him. If I was a fan of another team just listening to the game, I would probably think he might need to work on his chops.
Yeah, exactly.
So Syracuse plays again on Saturday at 7:00 against Elon, and that would be the opening round of the battle for Atlantis. But even if Elon pulled the upset, we'd still go. So it's just ridiculous to call that the opening round of the battle for Atlantis. But when we do get to the battle for Atlantis, it is going to be some great early season basketball, and we'll talk about that and a whole lot more when we come back in 60 seconds we're going to hit you up with the first edition of Connor's Corner of the 2015-16 season.
So many sights to see on the internet, but for everything local, there's no place you can get it. At FingerLakes1.com. Come on over to FingerLakes1.com. Like us your homepage. News, weather, sports, and fun. Log on to Finger Lakes One.
Local news from over 40 sources, custom local weather, over 10 hours of live broadcasts and podcasts every week on your computer, tablet, television, or smartphone. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
www.fingerlakes1.com. Come on and join the fun. Log on to Finger Lakes One.
www.fingerlakes1.com.
All right, welcome back inside the FingerLakes1.com studio, downtown Seneca Falls, New York. Jim Sinacropi here with you live in studio alongside Brad Connor via telephone in Cincinnati, Ohio. And one of the best parts about this podcast, and we hear it from our listeners and viewers, they love Connor's Corner trivia. And what Syracuse fan wouldn't, Brad, honestly, love Connor's Corner trivia? So let's bring it back. With the first session of the year, it's time for Connor's Corner Trivia. What do you got for us this week, Brad?
Every year I think about how I've had all summer to research the best question imaginable, and then I don't ever do any research about it until about 4 hours before the show. But when I did, I came across what I feel like is fantastic trivia tonight, Jim, and I am pumped to be able to deliver this trivia, and I hope you appreciate it all the same. Now, I do run the risk that you may have seen the same set of information recently, in which case you'll be able to nail it. But if not, then I think you'll enjoy this trivia. So, are you ready?
Yep, let me have it.
All right. In the Jim Boeheim era, which goes back now 40 years, there have been 23 players that started their first college game as freshmen.
23.
How many of those players can you name?
23 Syracuse players who started their first game as a freshman?
Yep. So they were freshmen and they started on opening day.
Right. Well, let's go with the ones that we know for sure. Malachi Richardson, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's one. 22 to go. Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony.
That's correct.
Yeah.
2002.
Jerry McNamara.
Also 2002.
I'm not sure if Billy Edelin started, so I'm not going to say him. Let's stick with the more obvious.
Billy Edelin did not start on that team. Freshman.
Let's.
At least opening night he didn't.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe I can't. It's tough to remember the opening day lineups for each of these years, but I'm still going with the obvious ones. 3 down, 20 to go. Let's go with. Let's go with Derek Coleman.
Derek Coleman, good. 1986 rather.
Pearl Washington.
Pearl Washington, 1983.
Ronnie Cycli.
Ronnie Cycli, 1984. And man, he was not a very good freshman either.
No, he was really bad, but athletic and had a lot of heart.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously developed into one of the greats, but he was raw as a freshman, very raw.
How about Roosevelt Bowie?
Roosevelt Bowie's good. 1976.
Louis Orr.
What'd you say? I'm sorry?
Louis Orr.
Louis Orr did not start as a freshman.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't so sure about that one. Adrian Autry.
Adrian Autry's correct. 1990.
Lawrence Moten.
Lawrence Moten did not.
Oh boy.
Which is hard to believe.
Yeah.
As, he averaged 18 points a game, 17 points a game as a freshman, but he did not start on opening day.
Okay. Geez, I'm probably forgetting some guys from recent history here, like Dante Green. Johnny Flynn.
Dante Green and Johnny Flynn, both correct. 2007.
Paul Harris.
Paul Harris did not.
Okay. Jeez, I got a long way to go here. Tony Red Bruin.
Tony Red Bruin is incorrect.
Okay, Gene Waldron.
Gene Waldron is incorrect.
Oh, Eric.
I had to look that one up too because I thought he would have, but he started about half the season as a freshman, but didn't start opening day.
Eric Sandifer.
Eric Sandifer, incorrect as well. Same situation. Started about half his games as a freshman, but didn't start opening day.
Well, since we're back in the old era here, let's think of a couple more. I know Leo Routins was a transfer, so he doesn't count. Andre Hawkins definitely started as a freshman.
Andre Hawkins did. You're correct. 1981.
Andre Hawkins. Man, this is a long list. Let's see. This is the best type of trivia question, though, because it makes you scan the entire, history of Syracuse's lineups.
Right.
And I should have been smart and kind of gone by order, but I'm just jumping around trying to get the obvious ones. I think I might have hit the wall with the obvious ones here. I know there's got to be a couple more. I said Johnny Flynn. Sherman Douglas didn't start as a freshman. I said Derek Coleman, obviously. Yeah, Greg Monroe didn't start as a freshman. No.
What's that?
Greg Monroe didn't start as a freshman. Or did
Greg
he?
Monroe didn't start as a freshman.
Yeah.
No, he didn't play much as a freshman, I don't think.
I feel like I'm missing someone from the early days, like Marty Head or Danny Shays.
Danny Shays is incorrect.
Oh, wow. Thought I had one. Dave Johnson? No.
Dave Johnson,
He
incorrect.
didn't. Yeah, I knew that. But Todd Bergen might have.
Todd Bergen did not. That's incorrect.
But his teammate John Wallace did.
John Wallace did. Definitely did.
Okay. So there's another
1992, John Wallace.
Okay. Wendell Alexis?
No, incorrect.
Sean Cairns probably didn't either.
Sean Cairns did not.
I'm just trying to steal one there. Just naming guys.
That would have been a good one. I would have given you top marks for that one.
Oh, I know a guy who did, and this is probably one of the hardest ones on the list that I'm going to get right now. His name is George Papadakis.
Shut up. No.
No, he didn't start that one before he transferred.
Oh, in fact, I've got to pull. For some reason, I had that pulled up. George Papadakis, his freshman year, played 24 games, but didn't start any of them. He averaged 2 points a game as a freshman. So no, he didn't start that year.
Yeah, the Papadakis era never panned out. You know who? This might be crazy, but Sonny Spera.
No, not Sonny Spera. Sonny Spera did start a game as a freshman, one game, which blows my mind personally. But no, Sonny Spera didn't start his first game as a freshman.
Played more as a freshman than he did as a senior. Sonny Spera.
I know it. He did. You're right.
So let's get a count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm just over halfway there. I thought I'd do better than this.
Yep. There's some easy ones, and you haven't even scratched the surface on the last 7, 8 years.
Yeah, that's true. I've been focusing on the old days, and really there's been a lot of them, Deion Waiters wasn't one of them. I don't know. Did he start? He started?
He never started a game for Syracuse, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I just thought maybe he started the first couple games and then was relegated to Mr. Six-Man. Oh, Damone Brown?
Damone Brown did not start.
Demetrius Nichols?
Demetrius Nichols, no, incorrect.
I know one guy that did. His name's Terrence Roberts.
Incorrect.
Darryl Watkins?
No, none of those guys. Wow. Stay off of that team.
Yeah. Preston Shumpert.
Nope, incorrect.
Oh, man, now this is getting embarrassing. Deshaun Williams?
No, incorrect.
I said Todd Bergen. And we know Dave Johnson didn't. So we want to go more recent years. Guys like Fab Mello.
Yeah, start recent, go backwards. You got Malachi Richardson. Go backwards from there.
That's right. Who do we have? Who was on last year's team? Caleb Joseph.
Caleb Joseph is correct.
Yeah, that was good advice there. Go backwards. We're gonna knock some off now here. I don't think Cooney didn't start as a freshman. Rakeem Christmas didn't start as a freshman.
Rakeem Christmas did start as a freshman, 2011.
Did he? Man. There you go. There's another one. I don't know if I could take credit.
He used to start games, and he'd start purely for the jump ball, I think.
Yeah,
and then they'd yank him after 2 minutes almost every time.
That's right. Okay, so we're going backwards. I'm thinking, I mean, some of these guys were guys that went pro, like Michael Carter Williams.
Michael Carter Williams did not start as a freshman. He didn't play much as a freshman.
Oh, yeah, you know what? You're right.
He emerged as a sophomore.
You're right.
Because he was playing behind Scoop, I think. No, it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was, and Scoop didn't start as a freshman either.
No, he did not.
Jason Hart?
Jason Hart did, that's correct. 1996. Good call there.
You know, Earl Duncan?
Earl Duncan is incorrect, no.
Oh,
but you're thinking along the same lines with one of these guys that's kind of obscure.
Not Keith Hughes?
Not Keith Hughes, no.
But a point guard who maybe didn't work out but came in highly touted.
Precisely.
Oh, geez, we've had a few of those. Alan Griffin. That's not really fit that bill, though. Michael Edwards might have started as a... No, he started, but not as a freshman.
Not Michael Edwards.
Yeah.
Not Alan Griffin, not Michael Edwards.
Guy, point guard came in highly touted and was a
Not
bust.
Anthony Harris.
Oh, he transferred to Detroit.
Not James Theus.
No, not Theus. Jeez. I'm going to need some help, or it's going to be Monday morning soon. Let's see.
Yeah, so you skipped over a bunch over the last 5-6 years that are pretty obvious ones.
Yeah, that's... I should probably... I'm having trouble remembering guys who aren't even on the teams right now. I'm lost in a
One guy's
vortex
on this year's team.
It's not Trevor Cooney. It's not Tyler Roberson. It's not Michael Benajay.
Nope.
It's not... who else is even on this team? Oh, DeJuan Coleman.
DeJuan Coleman is correct. 2012.
DeJuan Coleman, okay. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Think of a 4-year starter.
That's not on this year's team, though.
Of recent vintage. No, you got to go back 4 or 5 years.
I'm tempted to cheat and pull something up here. Some of these rosters. Okay, you know, the recent years should be easy to remember because they just happened.
Think of guys that went pro early and 4-year starters.
Oh, Routins didn't start as a freshman.
No, he didn't play much at all as a freshman.
Wes Johnson doesn't count because he transferred. Devendorf didn't start as a freshman.
Did not.
Guys that went pro early. Man, I tell you, people are thinking this guy. They're probably screaming at me, some viewers right now, the names of some of these guys. But when you're
missing 7.
I know it. I'm disappointed. It's been a long summer. A lot of golf.
Some you're just gonna shake your head.
Yeah, I know it. I know
Didn't
it.
get it, but
jeez.
There's a couple of obscure ones here.
I'm just drawing a blank on guys that went early to the NBA for Syracuse in the recent years. There's a Fab Mello we got, Dante Green we got. Those guys aren't even that recent though. You're talking
about one of these guys on the show from about 5 or 6 years ago, and we don't think of him very fondly.
All right, you're gonna have to help me out here for the sake of time.
All right, Fab Mello was the one I was just referring to.
Oh, I thought I got Fab Mello. Oh no, I didn't write him down. I said him though. I did say Fab Mello. Sorry.
Did you? Okay. Sorry about that. 2010, Fab Mello. Last year, Chris McCullough. Remember him? He used to play for Syracuse.
I know.
For about a week or two.
What the heck am I doing? Okay. Keep them coming.
There's a guy. There was a guy named Tyler Ennis that played about 2 years ago.
Oh, jeez. It's the most obvious one of the bunch.
Tyler Ennis would be what? He'd only be a junior right now.
He was one of the greatest freshmen we ever had.
Yeah. Four-year starter I was trying to get you to think of, Brandon Trish.
Oh, jeez. You kidding me?
Another four-year starter from many years ago, Craig Forth.
Oh, you know what? I wanted to say he was. I just
thought you were
couldn't.
going to get him when you were going down the championship team with Carmelo and McNamara.
You know, I said, yeah, he started, but then I thought, no way. You know?
He did. He was the first guy of that era, or of the big guy mindset that we're going to put the big guy in for the tip.
Right. Okay, so how many does that leave us?
There's two more. One is the most obscure guy on this list, and the other is the guy that you're going to wonder how in the world you missed it.
I pride myself in getting the obscure ones. Is it the point guard still that we're thinking of here?
Yeah, he wasn't a point guard. He was more of a shooting guard, but he's of that same sort of caliber guy that you were thinking of, Michael Brown.
Oh, yeah, transferred to Clemson. Michael Brown. Man, I pride myself in getting those obscure ones, but not that one. And then the one that I'm sure everybody that's listening to this podcast has already shouted out 3 or 4 times, Billy Owens. Oh, my God. Sick. Well, I didn't do so great. Although I did pull out...
It's early, man. It's early. We got to shake the rust off a bit. That's all right.
I mean, I pulled out Andre Hawkins and
you got a couple of the good ones. A couple of ones I was surprised by.
Well...
Nathan Hart was a good one. I was surprised you got that one. Dante Green was good. You remembered him.
Without Verk up here, too, it was a solo and had a little brain freeze, I guess. So
you and Verk would have tag teamed well on this one.
Well, I'm excited for another year of trivia. That was great. Flexing the old orange muscles, the memory banks, the neurons are firing. Good job, Brad, for opening week.
Bar set high for future weeks.
Yeah, good luck coming up with trivia questions for the next 20 weeks.
Somehow I manage. I probably recycled some in the past, but I try not to.
Well, we got about 10:48 Eastern Standard Time here on Sunday night. It's time for Two for the Road, and the first thing I want to talk about before we get out of here is our pre-conference schedule. I mean, look at this thing. We're going down to the battle for Atlantis, where we got a tough game against Charlotte. You know, this isn't a team that we can. This Syracuse team, we don't know yet. That Charlotte game's scary. You know, I'd like to see. I'd like to say if we won through to the championship game in the battle for Atlantis, even if we lost it, we might get some top 25 love. But I think we can win this whole thing. A second round matchup it'll be third round matchup. Can't forget the opener against Elon, UConn or Michigan. How about that? Both teams that I think we'd certainly have some history. Michigan, some recent history. UConn, some storied history. And then the finals would be on Friday, November 27th. So that'll be a nice little Thanksgiving treat. That UConn or Michigan game at it'll be either 3:30 or 9:30 on Thanksgiving. And then Wednesday, December 2nd, we got Wisconsin in the Dome. And then 3 days later, heading to Georgetown. You kidding me? And then at St. John's, December 13th. And finally, the ACC season kicks off on Wednesday, December 30th against Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh, which could be about the worst place we could hope to open our ACC schedule. Place we haven't had much success. So what are you most excited about for the pre-conference schedule, Brad?
Definitely excited for a game at Georgetown. Mm-hmm. Always a fun rivalry. And playing it down there, Syracuse had recent success down there in going to the Final Four on Georgetown's home court. That was fun. But the games, I'm real excited about the battle for Atlantis. It would be fun to play UConn again, and even Michigan. And there's recent history with Syracuse and Michigan. And Beeline seems to always have his team ready for Syracuse and Coach Boeheim. And if they could advance to the finals, I would love to see a Syracuse game against either Gonzaga or Texas. I think Texas is going to be leaps and bounds improved because they've got Shaka Smart down there. I would love to see that game and Gonzaga is always going to be tough, and so it would be great to see those two, one of those two teams in the finals. But Wisconsin in the ACC Big East Challenge, or ACC Big Ten Challenge rather, I think that'll be a fun game. Wisconsin lost one at home to Western Illinois, I think, the other night, but they're always tough, and they'll be ready. So
yeah, Georgetown lost to Radford
before we even get into ACC play. I'm excited.
Yeah, Georgetown lost to Radford.
Yeah.
And Verk, the reason
and St. John's lost to Division II St. Thomas Aquinas by like 30.
And the main reason Verk's not here is he's still out celebrating William and Mary's big win over NC State. I don't know if you caught that.
At NC State.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a squeaker. I mean, they dominated that game from start to finish.
Blowout city. So
yeah, you don't expect a William and Mary team to win on the road at an ACC school. That's good for them, and that's a question for the depth of the ACC, quite honestly.
So we don't have to wait long for some great basketball. Matter of fact, it's less than a week and a half away before we're on ESPN against some top programs, and this team's going to get tested. So definitely exciting on that front. Second question here before we head out, we need to give our official predictions for 2015-16. Right here, they're going to be recorded for posterity, so we can come back and see who was right and who was wrong. So this is like DraftKings or FanDuel right here, which is recently banned in New York State. Go ahead, Brad, with your official prediction for the upcoming season.
So I see Syracuse in the preseason before ACC play going, I'm going to say 11-2. I counted it up on this schedule in front of me, and it looks like there's 13 preseason games. I think they'll lose 2 of them. I'm not exactly sure which ones yet. Georgetown might be tough just because that's a rivalry game on the road, and I do think they'll probably lose 1 in the battle for Atlantis. But I think they can win all the others. Wisconsin games in the Dome, so I think that's definitely winnable. So if they can go 11-2 in the preseason,
pretty good.
Go say 9-9 in ACC play. That puts them regular season 20-11.
9-9. You don't think they're going to play the ACC schedule at 500?
That to me is a reasonable guess. I think there's a lot of potential for upside, but keep in mind this is a team that didn't get a single top 25 vote, so the jury's very much out. And it's a tough ACC. I mean, you got the number 1 team in North Carolina. You got Duke, who's always going to be good. Virginia's still excellent. Louisville's going to be good. Pitt can, they can play. I would have said NC State's going to be good, but maybe not. But there's a lot of talent in that league, and they struggled last year in the league, so they're going to have to show a lot of improvement from a lot of guys to be able to have a winning record in the league. But I think 500 is doable.
Do you know another team that started the season unranked and ended up winning the national championship? It was the 2003 Syracuse.
Now, that team did get some votes, though. That was the thing about this team, is they didn't even get a vote.
Well, last year Syracuse won 18 games. Boeheim's only not won 20 games 3 times in his career, and that includes last year. Never once in his career has he gone back-to-back seasons with less than 20 wins. So that might be in jeopardy this year with a tough pre-conference schedule and an untested team with a lot of youth, but I don't see that being the case. I honestly got us going 23-9 in the regular season, picking up a 5-6 seed, and then heading to the Sweet 16 before bowing out to some, like our best player will probably get injured or something at that point.
Or suspended or something.
But sky's the limit, and
I'll be happy with that.
The best thing about that 2003 team was when they kept winning and we kept rising into the rankings, and it seems like they peaked in their game, in the Final Four, and even the early rounds of that tournament were a little shaky. We were getting down to Oklahoma State at halftime by 16, 17.
They were very down to Oklahoma State. That was a game they should have lost probably if Oklahoma State had closed it out.
Then they just kind of caught fire the rest of the way, and so you never know You never know. And we do got Michael Benajay, fifth-year senior. We got DeJuan Coleman with some experience, and we got some super freshmen. That team that won the national championship wasn't that experienced. Queth Dwaney, Craig Forth, those were our senior leaders. They didn't have a lot of talent. Well, I shouldn't say that. They obviously had adequate talent. But, our stars
Carmelo
were
could play a little bit.
Carmelo and G-Mac. And to a lesser extent, Billy Edelin.
Hakeem Warwick was a pretty good player, if I remember right.
Hakeem Warwick was a junior. Is that correct?
He was a sophomore on that team.
He was a sophomore. So that team was so young. You kidding me? All the marquee players on that team were young, including Billy Edelin. So, hey, I got him at 23-9. Mark it down. Brad, great spending the last hour with you here on the old Upstate Hoops Orange podcast. We'll do it again. I think next week we're going to Sunday morning at 9 a.m. You can check the front page of fingerlakes1.com or fingerlakes1.tv for the official time. But right now it's looking like a 9 a.m. start next Sunday. So, until then, Brad, you have yourself a great week.
You do the same. Talk to you next week.
And I want to thank everybody else for hanging out with us for the Upstate Orange podcast. We'll be back again next Sunday morning at 9 a.m. with another edition. You can subscribe to our feed on iTunes, Stitcher.com, on YouTube, or via RSS. We're online at podcast.fingerlakes1.tv/upstateorange. So for the professor, Brad Connor, I'm Jim Sinacropi. Want you all to have a great week, and let's go Orange.